Hello, Hasselhoff House Reviews here, and welcome to my first review for 2026. And well, since we're in the summer here in Australia, I thought I'd look at a summer theme movie, beach movie too, to be fair. And I decided to end up talking about three in particular. All right, but anyway, let's get on with the topic. Let's talk about The Blue Lagoon. Now, this novel, written back in 1908 by Irish author Henry De Devera Stackpool, is considered a very important piece of literature. Um, so much for its story and all that. I mean, it's basically the basic romantic novel of two teenagers getting falling in love on a deserted island, but in many ways, it actually did shape a bit of um, book fiction in general. I mean, I think this was one of the very first books written involve or any forms of literature centered around desert islands and all that. So there is a fair bit you can take from it. But yeah, this is a very much important, would be seen as a very important piece of important novel in terms of history. And as you can tell, there have been a lot of adaptations based upon it. And well, considering how big the first book got and the fact that it had two more sequels afterwards, you can tell that Hollywood's bound to come a calling. And in total, there's been six adaptations of the Blue Lagoon. Yeah, six. However, I'm only going to talk about three. Yeah, I'm only talking three. I mean, I haven't seen the silent film adaptation in the 1920s. I haven't seen the 1949 film with Gene Simmons, I think, who was the romantic lead, and I haven't seen that in the 1980 Indonesian film. So they're not going to be talked about. But instead, I'm going to talk about three films. Okay, who what the first the first film, it's 11 year its sequel released 11 years later, and a reboot that came around in or remake in 2012 that well yeah, we'll talk about that. But anyway, let's start off with the main source and the film that pretty much everyone remembers, a 1980 adaptation, simply and just goes by the same name as the book, The Blue Lagoon. Now, this film was a huge deal when it came out. It was directed by Randall Kleiser, who 2 years later, 2 years before, actually released the smash hit musical Grease, which was at the time the third highest grossing film of all time, and starred two of the brightest young actors rising through the system in the form of Brooke Shields and Christopher Atkins. So you can tell this movie was huge. Columbia put a lot of effort into. We're putting a lot of effort into it, and we're banking on it to be a huge success at the box office. And guess what? They were right. It was a massive success, financially speaking. Yeah, if you look up the reviews for this film, it wasn't well received. I mean, some stuff were generally well received, like some of the shots of the beach and all that, and I think Christopher Atkins got a lot of praise for his performance. The majority, it was seen as a colossal failure, and especially critically. I mean, Roger Ebert in particular was really harsh on the film.
One of the most offensive things about the film is the way it pretends to be so wholesome and
Mm-hmm.
natural, while all the time, let's face
Yeah.
it, it's exploiting nudity and sexuality. This movie is about as innocent as those old nudist camp documentaries that pretended they were about fresh air and volleyball.
Well, I don't think it's as bad as you think it is, but I will say that you have picked the worst element of the film, which is that holier-than-thou attitude, that we are now going to see sex treated in an honorable way.
And although Christopher Atkins received a fair bit of praise, Brooke Shields did not. In fact, she was widely panned for her role. In fact, just to be fair, I think she was actually the first person to win the Worst Actress Raz at the very first category in the very first Golden Raspberry Awards. I think I'll have to double check if it was that year was the first of the Golden Raspberries, the Razzies. But yeah, let's enough stop talking about that and move on with the actual film. And well, I think from a guy who hasn't read the book, I don't know if it's a full, complete, adaptation, but we'll get onto it. So it basically we see a shipwreck happen in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I think it's Pacific. I'll double check. And escaping in a rowboat is the ship's cook and two young kids, which are the oldest, the boy, which is Richard, and his younger cousin Emmeline. I think that's her name. I'll have to double check, but anyway, the three eventually wash up on a deserted island, and Patty, the chef, just has to raise the kids and teach them, basically how to survive on the island, as well as giving them, laws and not to go to specific points for their safety. Unfortunately, his alcoholism eventually leads to his death a couple of years down the track, and the two children have to grow up on their own and survive and get through everything. Slowly but surely, they become accustomed to life on the island and are settled in quite well, to a point that they decide they don't even want to be rescued. But as that goes on, the two hit puberty and fall in love with each other, culminating when they finally give into their sexual feelings for each other. And, well, yeah. So, here, I should mention, it sounds pretty simple, and yes, it is a very simple story. But there is one factor that makes this a little bit complicated. And that is, as I said in the plot summary, the two leads are actually cousins. And look, I get that these two kids are there's no one else on this island, and they probably don't know about incest and all that, and yeah, I can sort of say that. And okay, I don't know the time frame this movie is actually set in, but even then, it just doesn't. It just still makes me feel a little bit creeped out. And look, nothing to say anything with these stories, because when it comes to subject matter like this, I mean, look, I can sit fine on Game of Thrones. I'm okay with that stuff because with the incest in that subject, because it's in a fantasy world, and also the fact that within the time frame it was commonplace for high-ranking royal families or with nobility to breed within their own bloodline to preserve it. I can get that. With this, it's not that. It's a little bit complicated, and yeah, I get very, very freaked out with these. And also the fact is that the two leads' intelligence is also off. Okay, again, I get it. These two, they weren't properly schooled. They were pretty much only, I think, about probably in their early years when they got washed up on the island, so they haven't got much knowledge of basic things. But seriously, these two just do not. The fact they're all so simple-minded gets very annoying because their dialogue is so childish in the way they, you know, and they just yes, their survival skills are good, but they, survival skills are one thing. You need a bit of intelligence to help make it work, and that's what I think I like more about some of these, like the most about Desert Island stories is when you see characters who actually do have a bit of intelligence and all that. I mean, and it helps it, and because of that, their low intelligence is what makes the romance very, not engaging. Like seriously, I love deserted island stories. I love some of my favorite things in favorite stories and all that when it comes to movies and TV shows are centered around deserted islands. I mean, I love, say, Castaway. I love Gilligan's Island. They're both very different subject matter, whether it be a drama in the form of Castaway or a comedy like Gilligan's Island, because at least they set their parameters, and treat everything in the right with a bit of smarts. These characters, even if you've got a more more of a lap-minded person like Gilligan, in his show, they still work out because they still have intelligence, and the dialogue still feels very sharp and adult. With this, not much. And yeah, even with that, and even when it comes, this film is marketed as a gateway for teenagers to get a grip on sex and all that. I don't get it. In fact, honestly, as I showed in the brief Siskel and Ebert segment, this was very peekaboo. Like they're keeping the sex angle very childish, and I don't get it. Like, you want to be serious, treat the subject matter seriously. Don't go peekaboo. And it really shows here. Even then, I mean, other factors of the deserted island, like, having to survive, wild animals and, dealing with illnesses and when you haven't got hospitals and the natives and everything, just seems so pushed aside to focus on the love story, which I can get. Just make it engaging. Nothing about these two, their connection, really interests me. Even when, Emmeline gets pregnant, that further creeps me out, not just with the incest angle, but it just doesn't. They don't do anything. Like, this film is so slow. Probably on par with The Conqueror, honestly, with how slow it is. Jeez. And the music doesn't help out. It's just bland, atmospheric, lovey-dovey thing, and it gets really annoying. As I said, I don't get any of the dialogue. And even the way things end, I'll talk about the ending later. But yeah, nothing in this scene works. And I don't, in terms of the main performers, I'm not gonna rant on both Shields and Atkins too much, but I don't think either one of them did well. But to be fair, the script wasn't that good, so it's hard to say. But I'm sure they were teen idols after this film. I know they were teen idols after this film came out, but gosh, did they not do anything now? This film is so dated. Yeah. Honestly, and that's honestly all I can really say. I just could not get into this. This was just so boring. And the critics didn't also agree with me too at the time. But regardless, this was a huge financial success for Columbia. It launched the careers of Shields and Atkins, and yeah, it's often regarded as a bit of as a important film for the teenage demographic of that time. Although I think it also pretty much symbolized Randall Kleiser's career afterwards, because he seemed to release his movie releases after that were more, he'd go from a hit to a miss pretty often. Well, at least to the end of the 1990s, because his films in the early 2000s were not that good. But yeah, regardless, it made its money back. It was seen as a success, and a lot of people from the 80s remember this film pretty much mostly fondly, I'd say. And you can bet your behind that Columbia would eventually make a sequel to this. Well, they would. 11 years late, I should mention. Now, Return to the Blue Lagoon is based on the second book in the franchise, which was called The Garden of Hope, if I'm correct. Yeah, well, no, not Garden of Hope, Garden of God, sorry. Anyway. And although Randall Kleiser would return to work on the film, he was an executive producer, not really and didn't have much, and I think that was all about his involvement he had in it. Instead, the director went to William A. Graham, who directed a few episodes of some TV shows that I'm well familiar with, and apparently directed Elvis Presley's final ever movie, so he has that. And to replace Shields and Atkins, we have Mila Jovovich and Brian Krause. Okay. And well, to say that this, and if Columbia was able to get a second hit in a row, not exactly. Oh, it was way worse than that. This film was universally despised. I mean, the first film got a 12% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. This film got a 0. Yeah, on the few movies that actually has a 0% rating. Yeah, that's a bit of a thing to go through. And it didn't even make that much money back. So it was a colossal disappointment. But when I look at but I should talk about the plot summary anyway. So at the end of the first film, the two, both Shields and Atkins, were discovered on a lifeboat that got washed up out to sea by a European sailor ship, and they said that the two the two of them were not dead but sleeping. Well, guess what? We got alien-free territory here. The two of them are actually dead, completely dead. No build-up, no nothing. Boom, they're dead. But their young baby boy has survived. Yeah, little Patty. That was his name in. They called him. A decent enough way to for them to remember that the man who helped save their lives. But in this case, film, he's actually called Richard because that's the only name he knows. So they assume his name is Richard. Uh, well, anyway, he's given to a young widow who's also on board the ship, and her to be raised along with her to be raised by her raise her along with raising her own daughter Lily. The two and for a while things seem to be going okay until a deadly virus is well, some of the crew gets infected with a deadly virus, and not wanting the kids to die, they put them and well, the girl's mother on a lifeboat with a member of the cabin crew also on there to protect them. Okay, I can buy that, but then because young Richard is constantly cries, the cabin crew guy tries to kill him, and oh god, this is getting ridiculous. All right, anyway, the woman throws him overboard, and eventually they wash up on a deserted island, the same deserted island from the first film, with everything still intact, including the house, which young Richard seems to remember. Oh god, jeez. This is yada 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 territory. But anyway, you can guess what's going to happen next. The two kids are being raised by the woman, slowly, not just to help survive on the island, but also learning English literature, making them more smart than the boys' parents were. Until she eventually dies, and both Richard and Lily have to survive on their own. As you can guess, they eventually grow feelings for each other and fall in love and give in to their own desires. But things start to change when they have a chance of being rescued, as they're discovered by a ship, and the captain's daughter falls in love with Richard and tries to take him away from the island all for herself, while another member of the cabin crew tries to get his hands on Lily. Ew, oh jeez. Oh dear. Alright. Now, I should mention, it seems like things are probably much worse in this than it does in the first film, and to a degree I can see why. I mean, seriously, I said the yada yada effect is very much prevalent in this, and seriously, I think the big thing is with Richard is that how can he should at least be able to remember his name. I mean, okay, here's the thing. If he's going to have no memory from his time on there, fine. But how does he not know his name's Patty, but is still able to remember the island where he grew up in? Why? Also, why does surely there had to be a better reason for the crew member on the board the lifeboat to have a psychotic meltdown to want to hurt the kid. Ugh, that gets over. That's overdone, and even the degree that they try to add. Yeah, and as I said, it goes on repeat. We don't get much of specific angles on living on the deserted islands and everything. And the music probably is worse here. So yeah, it probably is worse. But there actually are things that they improve and I actually like more here. What do I mean by that? Well, the fact that the two leads actually have more intelligence is very helpful. I mean, give credit to Lily's mother; she did well in helping them give a bit more proper English. Though there's still the dumb childish dialogue here and there. But at least they fixed that. I like when they do add stuff that is different. I mean, I do like the reason as to why the kids are placed on end up, having to end up getting shipwrecked. I mean, okay, all right. It's a bit unfortunate that they got washed up on an island, but at least the ship that they were originally on was trying to protect them from not getting infected by this virus. I'm okay with that. Even the angle of the boy's temptation with another woman, yeah, it's stupid, but at least it's a little bit better. And again, at least thankfully, we're not dealing with incest in this, so that's also going to help out a little bit more. So yeah, they made some improvements, but they still don't save the film. Yeah, honestly, I can still see why people do not like this film, and yeah, I'm not gonna say it, but at least there are some things I can give praise to. But regardless, because this was a massive failure at the box office, Columbia didn't bother trying to make the third film in the series, or the third book in the series into a movie. And so the franchise pretty much was left out in the middle of the ocean. That was until 2012 when Sony, now the owners of Columbia, decided to remake the film into a television movie. And we got, in that case, Blue Lagoon: The Awakening. Now, while Sony was the main group financing the film was actually instead made by Lifetime Entertainment, or Lifetime Films. And I'm sure a lot of people are probably cringing at hearing that because they would think, oh no, what are we going to expect? Because Lifetime television movies have very poor quality and all that with what people think of them. But they wanted to put a lot of effort into this. I mean, honestly, they managed to get Christopher Atkins to make a cameo in this, so there's something they're willing to treat it seriously. But honestly, I think this is the best Blue Lagoon movie. Alright, but let's get on with it. So, in this case, our two main leads, played by Australian duo Indiana Evans and Brendan Fortis, are actually both teenagers right from the start. Yeah, they're teenagers. Holy cow. And they're on a high school trip in the Caribbean when they both accidentally fall overboard on a party boat and end up getting washed away from their friends. Of course, they end up on a deserted island, and this one's actually fully deserted. There's no natives, there's only animals. They're completely lost, they're on their own. Okay. And, well, as you can guess, because they're teenagers, as such, once their life raft gets washed away, the two have to fend for themselves on this island, and, well, gradually start learning more about the other, culminating them developing, romantic feelings for it. All the while their families are trying to search for them, and on their own, though we don't get to see too much of that. Now, let's start off with the main thing I like. The fact that these two are teenagers right from the beginning when they get washed up on the island is actually I think much better for me. Look, I think because that is the fact that their intelligence is actually very high. I like that, and you can tell that these two actually do have, they do treat things more seriously and more realistic in this. I mean, seriously, the fact they have the way they're able to, hunt for, look for food, look for water, building shelter, it's more realistic of what people might actually go for on a deserted island. Just though I probably would have, anyway. Yeah, so I like that. As I said, the dialogue is much better here, though, to be fair, there are still those Lifetime dialogue choices, and even the music. Well, the music isn't the same here. Like, it's actually got a bit of pop, early 2000s pop music or stuff like that, and to a degree it can be distracting, but I don't really mind. I like that they actually we do see a bit of their, people actually trying to look for them. That's very nice. And I think above all is, what do I think of our two leads in this, Emma and Dean, his name is. Well, considering the first film, the Return of the Blue Lagoon changed the name of this, had a different name for the girl. I guess I don't mind the boy having a different name here. Well, honestly, I think they're bad. I think they're great. I like it. Well, not really great. They're good. The chemistry actually does work. I fully am on board with them. I like their, how they're able to support each other. Like what they their own troubles, and how they can comfort the other when they're going through everything. I mean, in particular, Dean's backstory is actually pretty interesting a bit with this. I mean, you've got a loner who was considered a bit of a rebel and all that, and a bad person, and you got the popular girl. I mean, okay, typical high school tropes, but they do pretty well with this. And, I can understand how they eventually give into this, they do develop, a relationship. Even to the point when we get to the end and after they're getting rescued, although they originally drift apart and go back into their old lives, they do eventually find their way back together. I like that. With that said, I do have some issues, like, I don't know, the opening of the film before they fall overboard, I don't know, I wasn't really the biggest fan, honestly, with their friends and all that, but thankfully they don't show up afterwards, even after they get rescued. But I think above all is the fact of how long it takes for them to get rescued, which is just over 100 days. Now this is where I think maybe they could have done things a little bit better. I think, personally, they should have been stayed shipwrecked for at least a year or two. Like, actually having become, by the time they get rescued, they're no longer, the age for high school, maybe just college and all that. The reason why is, well, okay, they do sort of do a little bit of talk about if they their mutual decide to one day have children, and Dean expressed concern that maybe Emma is pregnant, but that obviously doesn't happen. Honestly, I kind of like if they actually did keep the pregnancy side part of the story. I don't know, just have that happen, have them have a kid, get rescued, and see what how this changes things. I just think there could have been something more with this, but I don't know, maybe the budget and time and the time and everything that Lifetime had for this was probably not really suited for that. I guess the only other nitpick I have is the panther that stalks him a little bit. The CG with that is not really that good. Yeah. But in general, I think this is the best film by far. Look, it's still got problems, but at least I can actually care about things. I like the two main characters. I like the fact that they're teenagers right from the start when they get shipwrecked. I think and I like how serious it takes itself. I think it's easily the best. And, well, I'm going to stand by that. But anyway, what do I think of these three films? Well, the first film is a flat-out 0 for me. I really couldn't care. Actually, no, not a 0, 0.5. I really could not stand this film, and I think it's really, really dated. As for Return of the Blue Lagoon, objectively it's probably worse, but honestly I'm going to give it a 1. Like, it had a fair few it did make some improvements, it did fix things, just not enough to really say it wasn't a good film. Honestly, it's still pretty awful. But as for Blue Lagoon The Awakening, I give this a 7.5. I actually had a good enough time. I thought it was great. Well, good, I should say. None of these films I can really say are great. Well, obviously the first two, but the Blue Lagoon The Awakening is actually a really good film. I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking that with how the reputation of Lifetime's filmography is, and everything. Well, to be fair, I don't think that's all totally true. I mean, for the time I did review a Lifetime movie, that was actually pretty well done, and I think I know what will be one of my next videos on this channel. Yeah, I think I know what I gotta do next. One of the things. But in the meantime, this is House of France Reviews out, and I shall see you for my next review, whether it be a film in theaters or a bunch of television movies. Ciao.